one of the reasons I started the theatre company was to provide more opportunities for African and African Caribbean actors to perform in non-stereotypical roles. And because what I found as an actor in my 40s was that there weren't very many roles for me. And in fact, over the last couple of weeks, I screenshot a couple of, I'm on this platform, which will remain nameless for now, but maybe actors out there will know it. And they send me alerts for jobs. And in the last 2 weeks, I've got one for a single mother whose son is a drug dealer. And what was the other one? Was the other one a maid? I want to say it was a maid. So that's just to give you an idea of the paucity of roles available for a black woman of my age. And so one of the impetus behind Orisun was to create roles for myself, although I haven't been in anything yet. But maybe that will come. Maybe that will come.
So this was a response to, maybe I don't see any roles that I feel like I identify with, and the ones that are coming to me feel like a role that I've seen before that feels a bit feels stereotypical and is maybe not as nuanced as I would appreciate.
Absolutely. It's just that a change really needs to come.
Yeah. What do you think is the importance of that, of a kind of narrative that continues to reproduce itself, which maybe not is the full truth, and also a lack of a different example, because there's two things going on. There's a lack of a different example, and then there's this kind of reinforced example.
Yeah, so I guess the sort of reinforced example, I think, is about the producers, so whether it be theatre producers or film producers, feeling that they know what sells and not wanting to mess with that. So they just produce the same thing. I mean, they really do. There's very little. I mean, especially in Hollywood. I mean, it's quite shocking, the lack of imagination. And you just think, who comes up with this idea? And, who gave them the money to do this? If they give me a bunch of money. So I think there's a fearlessness around creating work that takes risks, because they're in the business of making money, and this works.
Yeah.
So why change it? And I think what it takes is for just a handful of individuals to just turn that on its head and say, actually, I'm just going to do this, and see if the audience, the paying audience, will be interested in it.
Yeah.
And I think there are examples of filmmakers and writers out there. There's I forgot his name now. It's gone out of my head. Who the writer, African American writer who wrote and directed Get Out. Which was
Us.
Yes, yeah. Which I really liked, by the way. I know lots of people didn't. They didn't like it as much as Get Out. To be fair, Get Out I did prefer, but I really liked Us. I think it was.
Are you into thrillers or scary movies?
I used to be. I was, Pinhead, Hellraiser, all those things. I used to be into it. And then I had children, and I kid you not, something chemically changes, which makes you averse to risk and not want to be scared. I'm telling you. Because now I cannot watch those things.
You're in full security mode.
But when I was in my teens and 20s, bring it on. But not anymore. But Get Out was a bit different, because I had to be really talked into watching it, because I was like, if it's like really scary, I'm not going to go for it.
It's interesting. So do you feel like a film like Get Out or Us really challenged it? I watched neither of them because I don't like scary movies, but
I've been trying to watch them both, and I still haven't watched. I've watched the trailers, I've watched bits and stuff, but I really want to watch them.
They were a revelation for me. To see black actors in that genre of movie was just quite Yeah, it was a shocker.
Yeah, I grew up with like Korean movies. I really like Korean movies,
really?
and like I find the whole idea of like horror with like it's just like the cultural imagery that they have and like the way they interact with each other. I just find it so fascinating.
Yeah.
I find it more scary than anything we like Westerns produce.
Oh, absolutely. One of the scariest movies I've ever seen was The Audition. I don't know, which is,
sure.
I think it's Japanese, but it's scary as hell. I mean,
Tell us about it.
oh,
It's the mother.
yeah, actually, you know, I watched that. That was again before I had children. But yeah, no, just a very, very sick woman who went around torturing people she dated or something. Oh, it's just horrible. And she did something with acupuncture needles, which meant I have never been able to have acupuncture again. It's seriously scary.
That was like when Hostel. Did you ever see Hostel? You were probably a mother by this point.
Yeah,
That's why.
but you see, when those kind of movies, I watch them and I just laugh. I just laugh. Yeah, like I just find them like totally comedic. Whereas with like some Korean movies, I'm like, oh my god, this is like I'm pooping my pants, you know?
Hostel was like this. I think it was probably like early 2000s horror of young people getting like abducted and kidnapped from hostels and like being sold to people for torture. It was like really intense. You know?
Oh my gosh,
but that's like,
that sounds awful.
But it's kind of like he did it like he wanted to be shocking and gory.
It was super shocking, yeah. It was
For
like,
the purpose of like, but there's like all like Saw I think started it. There's like Saw started like the horror which is more like disgust horror. You know, like super gory stuff, super like
but
I don't know.
Nightmare on Elm Street, come on, that was like gore. I mean, it wasn't
that
well
was
done.
Sure.
But it was,
but I don't think you saw him like sawing someone's arm off. You know, it was like
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, but I think there's like horror and terror, and like I find and terror I find way more scary than horror because horror is explicit, whereas terror can be something that your mind is creating the rest of the story. So like,
what's an example of a good terror film?
If you look over there right now, and there was like a face just looking at you,
sure,
that's terror.
Would you say
if there's a guy coming with a chainsaw and cuts the guy in half, that's horror.
Would you say that terror then would be like what was the one where the guy goes off into the to the mountains with his wife? And he's staying at this.
Oh yeah, Antichrist. Is it?
No, the one with Jack Nicholson where he's.
The Shining.
Is this like a terror?
Yeah, that's more terror.
Okay.
That's more terror.
But that's sort of like that's supernatural, sort of what they call that sort of psycho.
You don't even know what it is.
That's a really scary movie though.
That one is for you. That was.
I just find this like that cerebral sort of horror like way more terrifying, you know.
You found that one.
I'm gonna have to now watch some cartoon on the way back home to try and get that. That was so scary.
So we were on the top.
How did we get onto this?
Because we were talking about how us and
that stereotype.
That challenge, this reinforcement.
Because I said, I was talking to my husband about New Year's resolutions. I don't do those because I'm just never very good at them, so I don't do them. But I did say that this year I'm not going to watch any productions or any movies that don't have a black actor in a lead role. Because I've done that my whole life. I've watched just white people on the screen, and we were my husband, my husband's from the northeast. He's a white Geordie, but our children are brown, and so we were discussing this Christmas about what Christmas movies we can watch that don't just have white characters, and it was a real challenge. We couldn't find it in all my childhood movies that I loved around Christmas. Had just got, white people in there. And I realised that my whole image of happy, beautiful life was completely moulded by Hollywood, which was, Yeah, but actually, you know, for him as well, it was, you know, this very polished, you know, he's from a working class mining background, you know. And so even for him, it was this unattainable image. So I think for the majority, black and white, what the Hollywood machinery churns out is this, you know, image of unattainable beauty and perfection, which sadly I think, you know, we're all, you know, striving to.